Hello, my name's Julie Repper. I'm the Chief Exec of 𝐉𝐌𝐏𝐀, which is a UK-based organisation that works internationally and nationally, supporting recovery-focused services. And as part of that, we train peer support workers and we prepare organisations and teams to employ peer support workers. I first came across peer support in a trip to Boston, Massachusetts, in 2007, and then I went down to Recovery Innovations in Arizona and undertook the peer support training there, and found myself really keen to try to get some funding to start peer support training in England. This was before 𝐉𝐼𝐿𝐼 was formed, when I was recovery lead in a service, and I worked with a local service user-led organisation, and we developed the first peer support training in England and went on and piloted that 3 times with funding to evaluate it, refining it as we went along. And then when 𝐉𝐼𝐿𝐼 was formed, I think the reason that peer support really took off in England was that 𝐉𝐼𝐿𝐼 was established as funded through Department of Health initially to try to enable mental health services to be more recovery focused. And we developed a methodology in which peer support was one key element of organisational change. Once 𝐉𝐼𝐿𝐼 had taken on peer support as one of the challenges, and we worked with most of the trusts across England, services we worked with started to say they wanted to then take on that as one of their challenges. And many organisations started to employ small numbers of peer support workers. And evaluations increasingly demonstrated the differences that peer support could make, the improvements it could make, the benefits that it brings to the people who are supported by peer workers, but also to the peer workers themselves and to the culture and practice and language within services. So how it went on to develop was really as NHS England started to recognise that peer support was not only increasing in numbers, but also clearly demonstrating positive outcomes. Then it started to get funding as a new role within the NHS workforce. And there's an expectation now that all mental health services employ peer support workers, and this is funded through NHS England. So there is national funding to support the training of peer support workers and also to support the organisations in which they're employed. So in 𝐉𝐼𝐿𝐼 alone, we've trained over 5,000 peer support workers to work in mental health services. We continue to train around 400 peer support workers a year and peer support supervisors and training for trainers. And we provide specialist modules, foundation modules, and modules that can be run internationally to try to increase the kind of accessibility and availability of peer support globally. In only the last 15 years, we've gone from no peer support workers at all employed in mental health services to peer support workers employed in virtually every statutory mental health service, many, many more employed within NGOs, and a much bigger role for lived experience employees beyond peer workers. So peers are employed within recovery colleges, and we know that there's over 200 of those worldwide. They're employed as lived experience workers in co-production teams. There are many other jobs outside of peer work. So huge improvements, exponential increase in numbers of peer support workers, but we've gone nowhere near far enough yet. So the main challenges for the peer workforce in England at the moment, as peer workers, people feel still that there's a lack of clarity around what their role is, a lack of support for them to work in that very distinct peer role, that there's a real concerns around their capacity, their competence, around their ability. People either get peer support and love it, or more likely remain fairly worried about just how far we can take peer support. I would like to see some peer-led services available, particularly in areas where we know that peer support's particularly effective, like in crisis teams, I'd really love to see many more peer workers in a community navigation role, helping people to engage in relationships, activities, facilities within their own neighbourhoods. Many more peer workers helping people to build their own sense of competence and confidence around keeping themselves well. And really getting other professional groups to recognise that peers aren't competition. They're not there to threaten them. They're there to complement and add to the efficacy of the team as a whole. Thanks very much for inviting me to speak today. I hope you have a wonderful day.